In this video, I will be covering how to set up a full ammo system with UI in Unreal Engine 5. This video follows on from my weapon system tutorial series, so if you're not up to date, I've left a link to the video series in the description below. So now let's get straight into this tutorial. We're going to start by setting up the ammo counter in the player's HUD. So to do this, go to the content browser, then right click and add a new folder. Name this UI. Open it, then right click, go to User Interface, then select Widget Blueprint. Then select User Widget. Name this WBP_HUD. Open it, then go to the search bar and search for a canvas panel. Then drag it in. Next, go over to the graph and delete these events. Right click and add a custom event. Name this Initialize HUD. This will be initialized in the player character when the HUD is created to trigger all of its functionality. So we need to add an input to this, which we're going to call player character. Set the type to our player character blueprint. Then make sure it's an object reference. Now we can just compile and save this. Next we're going to make a separate widget for our ammo counter. This is because it's always good practice to have each element of the player's HUD as its own separate widget with its own separate logic. So go back to the content browser, right click, go to User Interface, then select Widget Blueprint. Then click User Widget. Name this WBP_ammo count. Open it, then go to the search bar and search for a size box. Then drag it in. Next, go to this drop down and set it to desired. This view will show the ammo counter's real size in the player's HUD. Next, we want to increase the size of the size box, so enable width override and set it to something around 400. Then enable height override and set it to something around 200. Next, we need to add the text that will display the player's ammo. So go to the search bar and search for text. Then drag it into the size box. I'm going to centralize its horizontal and vertical alignment. Then I'm going to change the text to what our ammo counter will look like, so that we know how it will look in the player's HUD. So I'm just going to type 30/120, the 30 being the number of bullets in the player's magazine, and the 120 being how many they have in reserve. Then I'm going to make the text a bit bigger, so under font, change the size to something around 50. Next, change its name to something more descriptive, like textblock_ammo count. Then make sure isVariable is set to true. This is so that we'll be able to change the text, for example when the player shoots or reloads. Next, go to the graph and delete these events. We're going to right click and create a custom event. Name this Initialize Ammo Count. This will be triggered from the HUD widget. We're going to want to pass through the player character, so add an input and call it player character. Then set the type to our player character blueprint and make sure it's an object reference. Now compile and save, then go back to the HUD. We want to place our ammo count in the HUD, so go to the content browser, then drag the ammo count widget onto the canvas panel. Then drag this out to make it bigger than the text. I'm going to put this in the bottom right corner of the HUD, so go over to anchors and set it to the bottom right. Then drag the ammo counter into the corner. Next, go back to the graph. Drag in our ammo counter widget, then drag off it and search for the initialize event. Connect this to the initialize HUD. Then connect the player character pins. Compile and save, then we can move on to getting the player HUD to show on the screen. So to do this, go to the content browser and locate your player character blueprint. Open it, then you want to locate your event begin play. Off the end, drag off and search for a create widget. Go to the drop down and select our HUD widget. It's useful to save a reference to the HUD in a variable, as you might need to access it in other places in the player character, so right click on this return value and promote it to a variable. Just name this HUD. Next, drag off here and search for an add to viewport. This will get the HUD to show on the screen. Finally, we want to initialize the logic in our HUD, so drag off here and search for the initialize HUD event. I'm going to double click on this line to add some reroute nodes just to keep things organized. Then we want to drag off the player character pin and search for a reference to self. This will pass through a reference to the player character so that ammo values can be communicated to our UI. Now if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will see that our HUD with the ammo counter is now showing on the screen. Next we're going to move on to giving different weapons different numbers of bullets in their magazine and reserve, and then displaying that in the player's HUD. So to do this, open the content browser and go to your weapons folder. Then open your base weapon blueprint. Here we're going to add some variables to store the necessary values for our ammo system. So the first one we're going to name current mag ammo. Then set the type to integer. This will store the number of bullets the player has in their magazine. Next, add another variable and we're going to call this one max mag ammo. This should also be an integer and it will store the maximum ammo capacity of the magazine. Next, we're going to do the same for the reserve ammo. So add another variable and call it current reserve ammo. This value relates to the stock of ammo that the player can reload from. Then we'll add one more variable called max reserve ammo, which is the maximum amount of ammo that the player can hold in reserve. Now we can compile and save this, then go to the content browser and open one of our child weapons. I'm going to start with the full auto weapon. If you go to class defaults, we can set our ammo values. We want the current and max value of each to be the same. This is so that when the player picks up the weapon, it will have full ammo. So I'm going to set the current and max mag ammo to 30, then set the reserve values to 90. I'm going to compile and save, then quickly do this for another weapon. So open the semi-auto rifle, then go to the class defaults and set the values to something different. So for the mag ammos I'm going to set it to 15, then for the reserve ammo I'm going to set it to 45. Compile and save this, then go back to the player character. Here we're going to set up how we can communicate from the weapon to the ammo counter widget to display the player's current mag and reserve ammo. For this we're going to use an event dispatcher. Event dispatchers effectively work by broadcasting a signal from one blueprint, which can be detected by other blueprints, to cause events in them to be triggered, and they can also pass through variables. So we'll be able to pass the current magazine and reserve ammo from the player character to our ammo counter widget. So click this button to add an event dispatcher. Name it E_update ammo. Next we want to add some inputs to pass through our ammo values. Call the first one current mag ammo. Then we want to set the type to integer. Add another input and call it current reserve ammo. And make sure that this is also an integer. This event dispatcher will be called every time the player's ammo changes and the ammo counter needs to be updated. So we'll start when the player picks up a new weapon. So come down to the spawn weapon event, then come over to just after where the new weapon is spawned in the player's hand. Select the nodes after, then move them across to make some space. Next, drag in our event dispatcher and click call. Calling this sends out the signal that the ammo needs to be updated. Next, we need to get the ammo variables from our weapon so that we can plug them into our event dispatcher. So drag off the current weapon variable and search for a get current mag ammo. Then connect this to the current mag ammo pin. Next, drag off the variable again and search for a get current reserve ammo. Then connect it to the event dispatcher. Next, we're going to set up the logic in the ammo count widget so that it can receive that the ammo has changed and the text needs to be updated. So go back to the ammo count widget, then drag off the player character pin and search for the bind event to E_update ammo. This is the node that can receive the signal and then trigger an event. Drag off this event pin and search for a custom event. Name this set ammo count. As you can see, it passes through the current mag and reserve ammo. Next, we want to set the text to these values. So drag in the ammo count text block, then drag off it and search for a set text. Connect this to the custom event. Next, we need to combine these two integer values into one line of text. So to do this, drag off the in-text pin and search for a format text. Next, copy this text exactly as shown. Each of the words in brackets will create pins that we can plug our ammo values into, and the slash just separates the two numbers from each other. Plug the current mag ammo into the mag pin, then the current reserve ammo into the res pin. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will see that if you pick up a weapon, its ammo count will update to show its current ammo. Next, we're going to make it so that when the player shoots the weapon, its current mag ammo decreases. So to do this, go back to the player character. Here we're going to create a custom event which can be triggered from the weapon to then trigger the update ammo event dispatcher. We're going to add 2 inputs to this to match the event dispatcher, so call the first one current mag ammo, then make sure it's of the type integer, then add another input and call it current reserve ammo, which should also be an integer. Next, drag in our event dispatcher and call it, then connect it to the update ammo event. Now we can compile and save, then go over to our base weapon blueprint. Here we need to get a reference to our player character so that we can trigger the event we just made. We're going to do this when the weapon is created, so right click on the graph and add an event begin play. Next, right click again and search for a get player character. Drag off this and search for a cast to your player character blueprint. Connect this to the begin play. Right click on this pin and promote it to a variable. Name this player character. Next, every time a bullet is shot, we want to subtract 1 from the player's current magazine ammo. Then send that value to the player character so that it can be passed through to the event dispatcher. So come down to the create shot trace event and make some space before the rest of the logic. Next, drag in the current mag ammo variable and get it. Drag off it and search for a subtract node. Set this value to 1. Next, drag off and search for a clamp. In this, we can set the minimum and maximum value that our current mag ammo can be. This will ensure that it does not go below 0. So you can leave the minimum value as 0, then for the max value, drag in the max mag ammo, get it, then plug it in. Next, you want to set this to be our new current mag ammo. So drag in the current mag ammo variable and set it. Then connect it to the return value on the clamp. Then connect it to the custom event and the rest of the logic. Next, we want to send this to the player character so that we can update the ammo count UI. So drag in the player character variable and get it. Then drag off and search for the update ammo event. Then connect it up. Next, we can connect the current 2 mag ammo pins. Then we need to drag in the current reserve ammo and connect that to the event. If you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you pick up a weapon and start shooting, the player's magazine ammo will start to decrease. If you reach 0 bullets in the magazine, you will notice that the player is still able to shoot. What we want to happen here is for the player to automatically start reloading. Now we're going to set that up and also make it so that when the player reloads, bullets are taken from the reserve ammo and added to the magazine ammo. So to do this, go back to the base weapon blueprint. When the player is shot, we want to check if their current mag ammo has reached 0. So drag off the variable and search for a less than or equal to. Next, drag off that and search for a branch. Then connect it up. If this returns false, it means the ammo is above 0, so we want to trigger our shooting logic. If it returns true and the ammo has reached 0, we want to trigger an automatic reload. So we're going to create an event for this. Find some space, then right click and add a custom event. Name this reload weapon. Next, come back up, then drag off the true pin and search for the reload weapon event. Next, you want to make sure that the player's shooting is stopped when the reload event is triggered. So drag off here and search for the end shoot event. Now, if you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, then pick up a weapon and start shooting. When your magazine ammo reaches 0, you will no longer be able to shoot. Next, before we move on, I'm going to fix a quick issue with the full auto rifle. If you hold down the shoot button, you will notice that there is a small delay before the first bullet is shot. So to fix this, come over to the base full auto weapon blueprint. Then before the set timer by event, we want to drag off and search for the full auto shoot event. This will trigger the shoot event immediately after the player holds down the shoot input, then the timer will cause a delay and then begin to loop shooting. If you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will see that this issue is now fixed. Now we can continue on with our ammo system. Next, we're going to move on to making it so that when the player reloads, the ammo needed to fill up the magazine is taken from the reserve ammo. So to do this, first go back to the player character blueprint, then come down to our reload logic. Click on this end shot event and delete it, then move all of these nodes out of the way. Come back over, then right click and add a custom event. Name this reload. Then connect it up. Next, come back over here, then drag off the current weapon variable and search for the reload weapon event. This is the event that we added to our base weapon blueprint. How we're going to get this to work is when the player reloads, this reload weapon event will be triggered. Then in the base weapon blueprint, we will calculate how much ammo to move from the reserve ammo to the magazine ammo. Then after that, we will trigger the rest of our reload logic. Now, compile and save, then go back to the base weapon blueprint. Here we want to add a new variable called needed ammo. Make sure that this is set to the type integer. This will be used to store the number of bullets needed to refill the magazine. To calculate it, first drag in the max mag ammo. Then drag off it and search for a subtract. We're going to subtract the current mag ammo, so drag the variable into the graph and get it. Then connect it to the subtract node. Next, drag in the needed ammo variable and set it. Then connect that to the subtract, and also connect it to the end shoot. Next, we want to check if there's enough ammo in the reserve to fill the magazine up to its max capacity. So, drag in the current reserve ammo variable. Drag off it and search for a greater or equal to. Then connect that to the needed ammo. Drag off this and add a branch. If this returns true, it means there's more ammo in the reserve than what is needed to refill the magazine to full. If this returns false, it means there's not enough reserve ammo to fill it up all the way. So we need to create two different sets of logic for these two different outcomes. We'll start with when there's enough ammo in the reserve. Next, we need to calculate and set what our new current mag ammo after the reload is going to be. So first, drag in the needed ammo variable. Then drag off it and search for an add. We want to add this to the current mag ammo. So drag in the variable, get it, then connect it to the add. Next, drag in the current mag variable and set it. Connect this to the add node, then connect it to the true pin of the branch. Next, we need to calculate and set our new reserve ammo value. So first, drag in the current reserve ammo variable. Drag off that and search for a subtract. We want to subtract the ammo that we're going to add to the magazine, so drag in the needed ammo variable, then connect it to the subtract node. Next, drag in the current reserve ammo and set it, then connect it to the subtract, and also to the rest of the logic. This code is getting in the way, so I'm going to quickly select it all and move it into some space. Next, we want to trigger the rest of our reload functionality in the player character, so at the end, drag in the player character variable, then drag off it and search for the reload event. Then just connect it up. Next, we need to update the ammo counter UI to display these new values. So compile and save, then go back to the player character blueprint. Our reload system has these four main events. When the player pulls the magazine out of the gun, drops the magazine on the floor, grabs a new magazine, then loads that magazine back into the weapon. It makes most sense to update the UI with the new ammo values when the player puts that magazine back into the gun. So I'm going to go over to the end of this code. Here we want to drag in our update ammo event dispatcher, then connect it after the set visibility. Next, we need to get our ammo values, so drag off the current weapon variable and search for a get current mag ammo. Then drag off again and search for a get current reserve ammo. Then we can just connect these up. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will see that if you shoot a few bullets, then reload, bullets will be subtracted from the reserve ammo and added to the magazine ammo. If you get down to the point where the ammo needed to refill the magazine to full is greater than the total reserve ammo, you are currently not able to reload. This is because we have not yet set up the logic. So we'll do that now by going back to the base weapon blueprint. This functionality will come off the false pin, so select these nodes and move them across to make some space. Again, we're going to calculate and set the current mag ammo. Because the needed ammo is more than the reserve ammo, we can just add the remaining reserve ammo to the player's current ammo. So first, drag in the current reserve ammo variable. Drag off it and search for an add. We're going to add this to the current mag ammo, so drag that variable into the graph and connect it to the add node. Next, drag in the current mag ammo and set it. Connect it to the add pin, then connect it to false. For the reserve ammo, there will be none left, so we can just drag in the variable, then leave it set to 0. After this, we want to do the rest of our reload, so we can come up here, select the reload event, copy it, then paste it and connect it up. Now if you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you pick up a weapon, then go to shoot out most of the bullets. When you get to a point when more bullets are needed to refill the mag than are in the reserve ammo, you will see that the remaining reserve ammo is added to the magazine and the reserve ammo is set to 0. At the moment, the player is still able to reload when there's no bullets in the reserve and also when they have a full magazine, which we don't want to happen. So to fix this, start by going to the base weapon blueprint. Come over to the start of our reload weapon event and move the event across to make some space after it. Here we want to check if the current mag ammo is equal to the max mag ammo, so that we can stop the player from being able to reload if their magazine is full. So drag in the current mag ammo and also drag in the max mag ammo. Drag off one of them and search for an equal. Then plug the other one in. Drag off this and search for a branch. Connect this to the reload weapon event. If this returns false, it means the magazine is not full and we should be able to reload. So connect the false pin to the end shoot. Now if we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, you will see that you're no longer able to reload if you have a full magazine. Next, we're going to make it so that you can't reload if you have no bullets in the reserve. So go back to the base weapon blueprint and move the stuff we just made across. Drag in the current reserve ammo variable. Drag off it and search for a less than or equal to. Leave this set to 0. Drag off it and search for a branch. Connect this to the false pin. If this returns false, it means there's still ammo in the reserve, so the player can reload. So connect the false pin to the end shoot. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you pick up a weapon, then shoot it until you run out of reserve ammo, you will see that you're no longer able to reload. Next, we want to make it so that when you pick up a weapon, it keeps the same ammo from when you last used it. So if you picked up a gun and shot some bullets, then dropped it, then picked it up again, it would still have the same number of bullets. Currently, this value resets every time you pick up a gun. So to do this, go to the content browser and locate your weapon pickups folder. Once you're here, open up the base weapon pickup. Here we're going to add 2 variables, the first being the current mag ammo, which we're going to set to integer. Then we're going to add another one for the current reserve ammo. If we compile and save, we will now be able to access these variables in the children of this base weapon pickup. This will allow us to set different initial ammo values for different weapons. So I'm going to start by going to the content browser and opening the full auto weapon pickup. Here I'm going to go to class defaults and set a value for the mag ammo and the reserve ammo. I'm just going to use 20 and 60. Now you can compile and save this, and I'm going to set it for the semi-auto weapon pickup as well. I'm just going to give it values 10 and 30. We need to set these values to be the same as the ones in the actual weapon blueprints. So I'm going to go to the full auto weapon, then under class defaults I'm going to set the mag and reserve ammos to the same as the ones in the pickup, which was 20 and 60. Then I'm going to do the same for the semi-auto weapon, setting them to 10 and 30. Now, compile and save, then go back to the player character blueprint. Next, in here, when the player picks up a weapon, and we spawn it in the player's hand, we want to set the current mag and reserve ammo in the spawned weapon from the values in the weapon pickup. So come over to the spawn weapon event and click on it. We want to add two inputs to this to pass through our ammo values. So call the first one current mag ammo and make sure it's an integer. Then add another and call it current reserve ammo, which should also be an integer. Next we want to compile and save, then go to where we trigger this event, which is in the base weapon pickup blueprint. As you can see, the two inputs are now shown on the spawn weapon event, so we can just drag in the two variables and connect them up so they pass through to the player character. Now compile and save this, then go back to the player character blueprint. Then we want to come back over to just after where we spawn the weapon in the player's hands. Delete these current and reserve ammos. Then we just want to select the rest of these nodes and move them across to make some space. Next, drag off the current weapon variable and search for a set current mag ammo. Then connect it up. Next, we want to drag off again and search for a set current reserve ammo. Then we can just connect this after, then also connect it to the event dispatcher. We're going to set these values to the variables passed through the spawn weapon event. So come over to it and connect the current mag ammo to the set current mag ammo. Add some reroute nodes to keep things organised. Then we're going to do the same for the current reserve ammo. Again, adding some reroute nodes. Now, when we pick up a weapon, the mag and reserve ammo is taken from the weapon pickup and is set to the corresponding variables in the weapon that the player is now holding. Next, we just want to connect these variables to the event dispatcher so that the ammo counter UI is updated to these new values. If we compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, if you pick up a weapon, you will now see that the ammo shown is the one set in the weapon pickup. Next, we're going to make it so that when you shoot some bullets, then drop a weapon and pick it up again, it will keep the same ammo count. To do this, when the player drops a weapon and the weapon pickup is spawned, we're going to take the current ammo values from the weapon they were holding and set them to the ones in the weapon pickup. So, go back to the player character blueprint. Come over to where we spawn the weapon pickup when the player picks up a new weapon. Select all these nodes, then move them across to make some space. Drag off this return value on the spawn actor and search for a set current mag ammo. Then drag off it again and search for a set current reserve ammo. Then connect it up. We're going to get the values to set these from the player's current weapon, so we can double click on the line coming from the current weapon variable to add a reroute node. Then we can drag off it and search for the get current mag ammo. Then plug it in here. Then we'll do the same, adding another reroute node, then dragging off and searching for get current reserve ammo. Then plug this one in. If you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play. If you pick up a weapon and shoot a few bullets, then pick up another weapon, then pick the same weapon up again, the ammo will stay the same as it was before. The final thing we're going to do is make it so that the ammo counter is only visible when the player is holding a weapon. So when they start the game and they don't have a weapon equipped, the ammo count is hidden. Then when you go to pick up a weapon, you will now be able to see it. So to do this, go over to the ammo count widget. One thing I'll also quickly do is set the horizontal alignment of the text to right align. This is so that the text will remain in a fixed position even when the numbers are changing. Then we're going to go to the search bar and search for visibility, and we'll set the visibility to initially be hidden. Next we're going to compile and save, then go back to the HUD widget. Since we realign the text, we want to quickly move the ammo counter to be positioned more accurately in the bottom right corner. Compile and save this, then go to the player character blueprint. Here we're going to add an input to the event dispatcher to tell the ammo counter whether to be hidden or visible, and name this one hide. Make sure the type is set to a boolean. This will add a new true or false input to all of our calls to the update ammo event dispatcher. Currently, we haven't yet added a feature where we would want to hide the ammo counter. Somewhere where we will use this in the future will be when we make it so that the player can drop all of their weapons to become unarmed. But for now you can leave them all set as false. If you click compile, you will see that we get all of these errors. This is because a new input has been added to the event dispatchers. So all we need to do is right click on each event dispatcher, then click refresh node. Once you've refreshed them all, we can compile and save, then go back to the ammo counter. As you can see, the new hide pin has been added to the set ammo count event. We can use whether this is true or false to set whether the ammo count should be hidden or visible. So disconnect the set text and move these nodes out of the way. Next, drag off the hide pin and search for a branch. If this returns true, we want to hide the ammo counter. So first, drag in the text element, then drag off it and search for a set visibility. Go to the drop down and set it to hidden, then connect it to the true pin. If this is false, we want to make it visible. So you can just copy and paste this, then connect it to the false pin, and then go to the drop down and set it to visible. We have two of the ammo count texts here, so we can delete one, then connect the other to the set text. Connect the set text to the set visibility. Then just add a reroute node to keep things organised. Now if you compile and save, then go back to the viewport and press play, your ammo count should now start hidden, then when the player goes to pick up a weapon, it becomes visible on the screen. You should now have a fully working ammo system in Unreal Engine 5. In the next video, I'll be covering how to add aiming functionality to our weapon system. So if you want to be notified when that video is released, hit subscribe and click the notification bell. If you're finding these videos useful, please consider leaving a like and supporting me on Patreon so that I can keep making these Unreal Engine tutorials. Thank you so much for watching.